Are there particular founders that make you sit up?
You always meet amazing founders over the years, and it's hard to predict when you meet them. But yeah, there are certain founders that intrigue you. I think the best ones, at least for me, are the ones that understand the parts that they're not good at. So many times speaking to a founder and they would say, yeah, Mike, you ask me to do X, Y, and Z. I'll do it with my eyes closed. Ask me to do A, B, and C. That's none of my ballparks. I need someone else to help me fill in those gaps. And I think it's important because it shows me that you have self-knowledge, which is important as a founder. And I think the ones that are laser focused are the ones that I always be impressed by, that they're just not distracted. They're just so focused on just building their business. And the one example that I tend to use very often, there's others, of course, but I would say Aaron Tan of Caro is one of them. Moses of Zendit is another one who I feel is like incredibly focused on just getting the business off the ground and getting it done. Cheng Wen from Ninja Van, similar. Gillian from Homage, she's amazing in terms of, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. You need to help me here and here. The rest I'll take care of. I just love that confidence.
It sounds very much like you're not just giving them the money and letting them go. You are very involved in these companies.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? Actually, the best founders, they don't need as much involvement as we sometimes would like to think they need. And you have founders that are like, Mike, just leave me alone. I got this. Yeah. I'll come to you when I need help. And then they do. They ask specific questions like, Mike, I want to talk to this insurance company. They're in Europe. Help me make an introduction. So that does happen. Yeah, we do try to be involved and be as helpful as we can, whether it's on the talent side, whether it's on fundraising, making introductions. Yeah, we do try to be helpful as much as we can.
How do you tend to get your deal flow? Are you open to cold pitches? What makes it stand out? Because I think you look at over 1,000 companies a year, right? That's a lot to get through.
Yeah, true. I mean, a lot of it comes through cold emails. Of course, there's a lot through our network. It's either other founders, it is sometimes our LPs even, but I think the majority of our deal flow is our own outbound. We spend a lot of time doing research on the ecosystem and understanding, oh yeah, who's leaving this company, is going where, oh, this person changed their LinkedIn. Are they building something on their own? Like, why is there stealth in their description? So we try to look for stuff that allows us to find founders early.
If I want to get your attention, I should just put stealth.
Put stealth in your LinkedIn. They're like, oh, interesting. Something's happening there. So we try to pay attention and just understand where people are moving, how they're moving, who's doing what. So let's give an example. Typically, if, for instance, one social commerce company is popping up, there are 7 or 8 others as well. So we really try to understand what is happening in this trend and find the best founders. And we find them through our network. And being here in the past 10 years as a firm, you've built a network across the region. So you tend to hear things relatively early.
Are there particular mistakes that come to mind just in terms of investment that you've learned?
One thing that I've learned is allocation is important. So if you invest in a business and you don't have enough ownership, even if it's a minority, but you don't have enough ownership to make sense for your investment thesis, you have to fix that. I've learned so many times that if you look at the companies that returned the best for some funds, it tends to be where you have gotten the allocation right. So that's important. I think the other thing is have confidence in your own investment thesis. I think the worst thing you can do as an investor is only follow trends and just try to piggyback off of others. What is your own conviction as an investor? That's the one thing that I've learned over the years, and it's a big mistake not to have one. So that's important. Yeah, overestimating yourself. I think it doesn't matter if you've been successful or not, you have to stay hungry and humbled because you're always learning. You know, I'm 46. I still learn every single day. It just doesn't change. So having that hunger and being eager to learn. I'm eager to learn from kids that are 19 years. I'm always happy to listen and understand what goes on in their world and things that I just don't know.
Speaking of investment thesis, what is yours and has it changed over time?
No, I'm one of the older cats in the business. There's certain business principles that never change. And for me, whether it's a local business, a regional one, or global, really understanding your business is important. I think understanding what scalability means is important as well. It is not easy to build something and do the same thing 100x. It's really hard. That's a big lesson for me in terms of my investment thesis, really understanding what does it take to get to 100x. I always look for that in a business, and that has never changed. The nuance change. For instance, you look at new developments, whether it's NFT or Web3 or different ways of investing at the moment, whether it's tokenized or equity. But in terms of the business principles, that don't change for me.
Are there particular areas that interest you right now?
Yes, I'd say the health tech space is interesting from a wellness perspective. I think technology is going to be an enabler for a lot of people to live more healthier and be more conscious of their own wellness. So that's one thing I'm very intrigued by. I think I have every single wearable on the planet just to try out and test and learn and compare the data. So I think that's one. Financial inclusion is an overused term, but I'm intrigued by how can we make more equally spread over larger communities and how can we use technology for it. So, earned wage access is one example where you allow folks to use their salary for different ways and sort of automate it, whether it's for savings, for purchase, for school fees, like anything you can do to make people that have lower wages utilize their salary and actually make them more money as opposed to less money and make sure that they're taking less advantage of them. I'm very intrigued by art and how technology and art combine. I'm investing in NFTs to learn. It's funny to me, just sitting on Discord and seeing all these kids talk. It's hilarious, but I'm learning a lot as well.
There are a lot of people as well who are releasing very successful NFTs in this space, in this region.
Exactly. That's the other thing. The one thing that I'm excited about is Web3 NFT allows Southeast Asia to position themselves, because I think like if you look at the Philippines or Indo or Singapore, there's so much happening in the NFT space. So that's things that I find interesting at this moment.
I'm interviewing some of those people who have just released NFTs in this space right after you. So exciting.
Oh, nice.
So I want to talk about some of your existing portfolio companies. You mentioned, say, Ninja Van. I wonder, they are a logistics company. They must have gone through a very interesting experience during the pandemic. What was it like working with them?
We've luckily stayed in touch with the leadership team during the pandemic. I think Ninja Van is an example. The pandemic has worked for them, although it was a very, very, of course, dark time for a lot of people. It worked for them in terms of their business. Everyone was so dependent on buying things online and having it delivered to their homes. This is public. They've 3x their revenue in 2020, continued to show growth in 2021. Despite the growth, they've stayed laser focused on just building their business, building a better infrastructure. How can we make things smarter? How can we make the consumer experience better? So it's impressive that even if you have success, you're still looking to drive business and try to make it better.
In a more general sense, how has the pandemic impacted your portfolio companies? How have you assisted them during this period?
I'd say at the start of the pandemic, like everyone else, we were all concerned, and because we had no idea where this was going. So the biggest question we had was, do we have enough runway for all of our companies to get through the pandemic? That was the initial question. That was in May of 2020. A lot of discussions internally, like talking on a regular basis with the founders. And then we noticed in September, like, oh my goodness, there's such a tailwind because everyone is looking to invest in tech. Most of our companies have no issues fundraising whatsoever. So yeah, I think they're going to be okay. So we shifted from sort of a cautious approach to, hey, let's kind of take this tailwind and see if we can fundraise for a lot of our companies. So a lot of our companies were actually successful in fundraising. For the ones that weren't, we try to put in some extra effort to get sort of new investors on board, find fresh capital for the teams. So yeah, it was a bit of a shift. And I think the one thing we learned was just to stay flexible and just be on your toes all the time. And that really helped us manage the portfolio kind of through this period. But in all fairness, Q3 of 2020 up until end of last year has been a tailwind for technology. Apart from the public markets, in the private markets, there's been a lot of investments.
Will you say it's going to has changed the way that you are fundraising for your VC as well? Because in 2019, you took over 80 flights, right? And now you've realized you don't actually need to go and meet people in person and still raise the funds.
Yeah, I had this funny discussion. I was in Korea a month ago. So speaking with one of our existing investors and met a bunch of potential investors as well. Everyone appreciated, and literally everyone said at the start of the meeting, like, Mike, thanks so much for coming down to Korea and see us in person. Of course, we fundraise over Zoom and close investors over Zoom. But having that personal one-on-one connection, and I'll give an example. I was in Oman a week ago and I was having dinner. During dinner, someone said, hey, Mike, I want you to meet someone else. He's here. And I think you guys should be co-investing at some point in time. This wouldn't have happened if I would have done just a Zoom call. So having those serendipitous, meetings, it's fun. One thing though, I will never go back to doing over 80 flights in a year because it is physically exhausting. and it's not healthy. So I'll be more conscious about the flights that I take, the flights that I don't take. I would say, let's just do a call if it's possible. But I would, of course, still travel. I'm just going to be a bit more focused and pay more attention to, does it make sense to actually make this trip, yes or no?
And on a more personal level, when the pandemic hit, you were quite open about the fact that, you felt like you had to overcompensate. You felt that you were not doing anything.
Yeah, it's if you go from flying all over the world to literally no flights whatsoever, it's a bit of a gap in terms of, oh man, there's no output. Because if you're having those one-to-one meetings, if you're meeting folks, there's always something you're doing, or you feel very productive. Not traveling around was like, what am I doing? Of course, you have like a lot of work that you can do. You can go through your emails, but we did a lot of sessions with our partners. We had founders workshops that we did online with partners like Cooley. We had a number of events for the portfolio, a number of events just for the general ecosystem. So we were able to kind of also give back. And then in terms of work, I did a lot of desk research, which I finally had time for. So yeah, you just do your work in a different way, I guess.
I wanted to ask two questions more from a founder perspective. We talked a lot about focus. I wonder if you tend to give your founders some kind of a framework just to stay focused, because it's easy to say, I need to stay focused, but how do you actually do that?
I'm not sure if it's a framework, but I guess it's more experience that I then try to share. The only way I can do it is when I talk about the business, I try to ask questions in a direction where, okay, if you are launching a new product, just for example, right? So you have your existing one, you feel your existing product is not generating enough growth. So what you do is, hey, this is not working. I'm going to do something else. My question is always, okay, let's go back to your first product. Analyze what is it that is not working, because the danger is if you launch your second product and you kind of do the same thing, it isn't going to work neither. So really understand why that first thing is not working. And is there anything that you can fix on this first product to actually make it work? Because we tend to assume if you start something new, because it gives you new energy, it gives you new hope, you think, oh yeah, this is definitely going to work. But I've now learned that spending time on that first thing that you felt like is not going to work could actually make it work. So I'm really trying to emphasize on, you shouldn't just throw away all the effort and time you spent on this first product by saying, I'll do something new. Because the danger is once that energy goes away from your new initiative, you're going to go do another thing just to get that new energy kick again. It's like grass is always greener kind of conversation. So I always try to help them focus on work on that initial product. Have you done everything that you possibly can to make it work? And if that's the case, of course, you can always say, listen, you have to pivot into a different direction, which is fine. But don't do it because you feel like, oh, it's not working, I have to move on. Do the work to actually make it work. And if it really doesn't, then you can move on.
You've said before that one of the things that you lacked when you were a founder yourself was mentors. And that's really, really important. So do you have any advice for founders just in terms of finding good mentors for themselves?
Yeah, it's a very simple one. Just reach out to people. We tend to wait until something happens to us. The best thing you can do is just be one step ahead. And one step ahead is just reaching out and taking that first step. So if you think someone in your community or your network or someone that you look up to and you want them as a mentor, just ask. I've had a lady from the UK. She listened to a podcast and heard me speak, and she reached out over LinkedIn, and she's like, I would love for you to be my mentor. I said, hey, I'm honored that you asked me. Currently, I have little time, but let's find each other halfway. I said, let's do one session. Let's take an hour. And then you can ask me anything you need in terms of your business, where you're going next. And we had an amazing conversation for an hour. She reached out cold over LinkedIn. Just make sure you take it first step. That's important.
I love it. I just released an episode with a person who said that the way they got mentors was also through LinkedIn. But what his other friend did was he also said, if you give me time, I'll pay you $500. And he got James Clear on the call. So it works. It works sometimes. Yeah. Are there ways that you've found cold calling to be effective, like certain things that they say that make you more inclined to say yes? Because your time is precious.
For me, as long as people are authentic, then it's likely I'll take some time out of my schedule to help, but it has to be authentic.
And before we wrap up, apart from doing all this, you also have a documentary. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. We produced and directed a documentary called Broken Chains. This started in 2020 when the Black Lives Matter movement in the US took off and people all over the world were protesting because George Floyd was murdered, Breonna Taylor. And I was in a position where a lot of my friends and colleagues in Singapore were asking how I was feeling about all the events in the US. I noticed that there was a lot of empathy for a Black person in Singapore. There are not many Black VCs in Asia. I think there's two actually. Uh,
You know, it's that little.
yeah, it's really a few. And in those conversations, I also noticed that there was little understanding what it means to be Black in the professional setting. So I decided to write an article about it. And that article on Medium, it took off and a lot of people shared it, posted and reached out.
Didn't you get like over 50 phone calls just from that article?
Yeah, I think even more. I was talking to my wife about it yesterday. Like even she got phone calls. So it was fairly intense. So one of the film producers in Singapore said, "Oh man, this article was so touching and moving. I want to make a short video about it." And I declined because I said, I don't feel comfortable making a film video about myself specifically around this topic. I said, but I'm very passionate about social justice and I'm passionate about the racial wealth gap and there's more equality across different communities. And specifically because I am Black, I can speak about the Black community. So he said, oh, that's an amazing idea. I said, let's find people that we can interview and do it sort of documentary style. And that's how we came about making this documentary that talks about the racial wealth gap and why there is so much inequality, even in my industry, in the venture industry, where only a very small percentage of the funding goes to, it is not just the Black community, it's a little percent of the funding goes to the Latin community, a little percentage of funding goes to the female community. So there's just not enough funding equally spread. And we wanted to address it. So we made this documentary. It took us a little over a year to make it. Official premiere is going to be in April of this year. Yeah, we won 6 awards in the past year. So it's been a really intense, emotional journey, but I'm so glad to be part of this project.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for your time. I love to end all of my interviews with the same questions. And the first one is this: do you feel like you have found your why?
Yes, I have. Yeah. I think through life and through the different, careers that I've had, I'm feeling in a position that my why is clear for me. I feel comfortable in that position as well.
What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I think the most important one is contribute to an equal society where it doesn't matter what your background, gender, or belief is. As long as you are your authentic self, there's an opportunity for you to get access to whether it's a career, education, a healthy life, anything. I think background shouldn't matter.
What do you think are the most important qualities of a successful person?
I think the most important qualities are knowing yourself, being able to lead and inspire others.
And where can people go to find out more about what you're doing? Reach out, ask for mentorship.
I think LinkedIn is still a very good platform to reach out to me. I'm relatively active. I do my postings and my articles on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, you can always find me on LinkedIn.